let's talk about the single most important resource you've probably never actually seen. We are diving deep into the global battle for semiconductors, these tiny, tiny components that are, and this is no exaggeration, literally running our world. This isn't just some tech story. It's the story of a competition that is going to define the 21st century. You know, this quote from some MIT research really just says it all. Think about any piece of modern technology. I mean, your phone, the internet, even critical national defense systems. And right at the very heart of it, you're going to find a semiconductor. They are, quite literally, the brains of the entire operation. And that is the million-dollar question, isn't it? That's what we're really digging into today. Because this isn't just about cool new gadgets, it's a story about a ridiculously fragile supply chain, massive geopolitical risk, and a super high-stakes game for control. Okay, so to really get a handle on the stakes here, we first need to grasp just how fundamental these chips are and, who the main characters are in this global drama. So what even is a semiconductor? Well, think of it like a material with a superpower. It can act as both a conductor, which lets electricity flow, and an insulator, which stops it. So by packing billions, and I mean billions, of these microscopic on-off switches onto a single chip, we can control electricity to perform incredible calculations. It's a pretty simple concept, really, but the execution is just mind-bogglingly complex. All right, now that we know what a chip is, the next obvious question is, where do they come from? And that, right there, brings us to the core of the conflict. The world is desperate for these chips, but the ability to make the most advanced ones, well, it's dangerously concentrated in one tiny corner of the globe. Okay, so what's really fascinating here is how this whole process works. You've got the upstream, that's mining all the critical minerals. Then you have the midstream, that's refining them into super pure, usable materials. And then, finally, the downstream, the unbelievably precise art of fabricating the final chip. It's like a global relay race, and if anyone drops the baton at any stage, the whole thing can just grind to a halt. And here it is. This is the heart of the imbalance. Just look at these numbers. When it comes to the most advanced chips, we're talking the kind you need for AI, for supercomputers, Taiwan manufactures a staggering 58% of them. To put that into perspective, one single Taiwanese company, TSMC, produces over half of the entire world's supply. It's just wild. So how on earth did we get here? Well, this chart tells the story, and the numbers are pretty stark. Back in 1990, the US made 37% of the world's chips. Fast forward to 2021, and that share had absolutely plummeted to just 12%. And that's because companies shifted their focus away from costly manufacturing to high-margin design. This shift, over decades, created a massive dependency that has now become a top-tier national security concern. Now, this vulnerability, it definitely did not go unnoticed. It basically triggered a massive response from the US government, which led to a brand new plan to reverse this trend and bring chip manufacturing back home. Enter the CHIPS Act. So the US response came in the form of the CHIPS and Science Act, and the scale of this thing is just wow. $280 billion. This is a monumental piece of legislation, all aimed at revitalizing the American semiconductor industry over the next decade. It's a massive, massive bet on America's technological future. And you know what? It's already having a very real effect. We're seeing a huge surge of investment in new fabrication plants, or fabs as they're called. Big names like Intel, Micron, and even Taiwan's own TSMC are building these enormous new facilities in states like Arizona, Ohio, and New York. But hey, it's not just about building a bunch of factories. The act is actually a multi-pronged strategy. It's trying to boost research, train a whole new generation of engineers, and strengthen alliances with partners. And crucially, it also includes these guardrails that prevent any company that takes the money from expanding their advanced chip operations in China. But the CHIPS Act, that's the defense. The US also decided to go on offense, using some really powerful policy tools to try and slow down its main technological competitor. Okay, this is where things get really, really interesting. The key tool here is something called the Foreign Direct Product Rule. Essentially, it gives the US the power to block the sale of a foreign-made chip if, and this is the key part, if that chip was designed using American software or built with American equipment. So even if a chip is made in, say, South Korea, if US tech was involved anywhere in the process, the US can control where it goes. It's a rule with an unbelievably long reach. So the big question is, did it work? Well, the data suggests it had a huge impact. After these sweeping controls were announced back in October 2022, China's overall imports of the equipment you need to make semiconductors dropped by nearly a third. And the effect on key U.S. allies was even more dramatic. Imports of that same equipment from South Korea into China just plummeted by nearly 50%. This really shows you how quickly companies and allied nations had to adjust to the new rules of the game. But the strategy wasn't exactly perfect right out of the gate. This data point is fascinating. Experts from the Netherlands, which is home to a critical equipment maker, they actually increased right after the US announced its rules. It wasn't until the Netherlands and Japan officially joined the controls later on that those gaps were fully closed, which just goes to show how critical it is for all the allies to be on the same page. So all of this, the massive investments, the aggressive controls, it's completely reshaping the global landscape. And honestly, it's creating a very, very uncertain future with some huge challenges ahead for everyone. But look, bringing this incredibly complex supply chain back home, what they call onshoring, is a monumental task. I mean, the path is steep. Just getting the permits for new mines can take a decade. There are major environmental hurdles. And on top of all that, U.S. companies have to compete with established foreign infrastructure that was built with huge state subsidies and way lower costs. It is not easy. And this whole situation, it puts everybody in a really tough spot. You've got allies like South Korea and Taiwan who are completely caught in the middle. China is their biggest customer, but the U.S. controls the key technology they need. So in response, China is just doubling down. They're pushing like crazy for self-sufficiency, restricting their own exports of critical minerals, and aggressively trying to recruit top engineering talent from all over the world. And all of this leads to this really powerful concept known as Taiwan's silicon shield. The theory basically goes like this. Taiwan's absolute dominance in chipmaking makes its economy so essential to the world, including to China, that it actually acts as a deterrent against military conflict. It's a shield made not of steel, but of silicon. Which brings us to our final lingering question. With all these massive investments, these intense strategic rivalries, and these fracturing supply chains, you have to ask, are we witnessing the beginning of a new kind of Cold War? One that's fought not with missiles, but with microchips. The game is definitely on, and the outcome is anything but certain.